All right, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. That's right. It is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. I post these pointless, barely watchable college football videos year round. There is no off season here. That's right. We have ridiculous things to talk about every day of the year around here. But have you seen this coaches list that came out? So Ryan Day just got a big raise and contract extension. Nothing unusual about that. It happens all the time, or happens almost all the time whenever somebody wins a national championship. So got no issue or beef with that. But I think it was On3 yesterday, put this list out right here. Have you seen this list? This is the highest paid coaches in all of college football. So I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you all about this list. I'm going to kind of run through and give you my opinions on some of it as well. Before we get started with that, though, like I said, make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the thumbs up. That's a big help to the videos, especially in the off season when it's hard to gain traction with these college football videos. And I will be live tomorrow, Saturday, in the afternoon. I'm not 100% certain what time yet. We'll hang out and talk college football for a couple of hours. I'm probably going to have a college basketball game on TV if I can find one to bet on tomorrow. So while I'm watching the game up there, we can hang out and talk some college football. So turn your notifications on. I'll be live at some point tomorrow afternoon. And as far as the Super Bowl goes on Sunday, that'll be the Patreon stream this week. So to those of you who are members over on the Patreon page, I'll post the link to that on Sunday, and we'll kick that stream off around 6 o'clock. For Super Bowl Sunday, the Eagles versus the Chiefs. I'm not going to make a video on the Super Bowl. I picked the Chiefs. I picked the Eagles. Sorry, I took the Eagles plus 1.5. I think it's going to be a really good game. It's dangerous to bet against Mahomes. Believe me, I know. I took the Chiefs last year and made a lot of money. I just have a feeling it's the Eagles' year. We'll see. But I think it's going to be a good game. I'm going with the Eagles, so if you want to troll me about that, go ahead. If you're not on the Patreon page, what are you doing? The link is in the description of the video. Check it out. Get signed up. We have a great time on the Patreon streams, and I do Patreon streams every weekend year-round. All right, let's get back to the list. All right, Kirby Smart at number 1 is the highest paid coach in college football, $13.2 million. He's got 2 national titles. He's made multiple trips to the playoffs. Hasn't finished outside the top 10, I believe, since his first year. I think it's the only year he ever finished outside the top 10. Was his first year back in 2016. He went 7-5 in his first year, 8-5 after a bowl win. 2017, won the SEC and played for a natty. 2018, played for the SEC and lost, only had 2 losses. 2019, exact same thing. 2020 was the COVID year, won a New Year's Six game, finished in the top 10. 2021 and 2022, they won a national title. 2023, they just missed out on the playoffs. They were 5th or 6th, I think, in the final playoff ranking in 2023. 2024, this past season, they won the SEC, got a bye, lost the second round of the playoffs to Notre Dame. So he's finished in the top 10, what is that? 8 of his 9 seasons, 9 out of his 10 seasons, whatever it is. High winning percentage, several SEC championships, 2 national titles. Makes sense. Hard to argue Kirby Smart being one of the most highest paid coaches in all of college football. Ryan Day at number 2. This makes sense to me too. And not just because he just won a natty. It's really strange because on one hand, I've had a really good time over the years kind of needling Ohio State fans about some things that I think they deserved. And on the other hand, I found myself almost taking up for Ryan Day sometimes with the sort of fire Ryan Day crowd. That sort of segment of the Ohio State fan base that has been unhappy with Ryan Day up, of course, until this postseason. But even as recently as 2 months ago when they lost to Michigan, you had a significant portion of the Ohio State fans were not happy with Ryan Day. But he finally got his national title. Now, he has lost to Michigan now, was it 3 years in a row, 4 years, or hasn't beat them since 2019? They didn't play in 2020, so he lost to them in 21, 22, 23, and 24. 4 straight losses to Michigan. So there is that, and that's not good. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that, but he's got the highest winning percentage of any coach in all of college football. He's got Big Ten titles. He's got playoff wins. He's got a national championship. He's got multiple New Year's Six and playoff wins. He's obviously one of the best coaches in the game. The whole being born on third base argument as it relates to Ryan Day is a little bit irrelevant at this point now. All of the players on Ohio State's team were gathered up by Ryan Day. There's no Urban Meyer players left over on this team 6 years in. He absolutely destroyed the transfer portal last year while still maintaining an elite top 10 level high school recruiting class, which I think is the key to high level success in modern day college football. I still believe in high school recruiting. I still think you have to recruit at a high level to remain consistently good in the world of college football. There could be some outliers like Florida State a couple of years ago who can put together a really good portal class and have sort of a pop season. You remember they won the ACC before losing 63-3 to Georgia in the Orange Bowl. They can have a year like that, but it's going to be hard for a team that relies that heavily on the portal, I think, to consistently remain at the top of college football without the elite recruiting classes stacked on top of each other to sort of build the solid foundation that you need to be a consistently good football program year in and year out. Ryan Day has proven he's got the ability to do that. They recruited at a ridiculous level. They get almost any player they want. And you look at what they did in the portal last year, going out and getting Caleb Downs, the quarterback Will Howard, the running back Quinshon Judkins. Now, yeah, the majority of that team was made up of players that Ryan Day recruited out of high school, signed, developed, and now we're on the field at Ohio State. So it's he's got the perfect combination, I think, of recruiting, high school recruiting, and portal recruiting. Hard to argue with Ryan Day being one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football. Dabo Swinney at number 3. This is probably the first one that could potentially be a little controversial for some people. He does have 2 national titles. Now, that was a while ago, 16 and 18. But even in the meantime, it's not like they have tanked. Now, they did go through a 4 or 5 year period where they got progressively worse starting around 2019. They won the Natty in 2018 and then haven't won it since. They lost, I believe, 3 or 4 games for 3 seasons in a row, failing to make an ACC championship game a couple of years ago. But last year found themselves back in the ACC championship game and won it, beating SMU, earning a trip into the playoffs. They, of course, lost in the first round on the road at Texas. But even though Clemson is not at the level that they were in the late 2010s, they haven't nosedived. They were teetering for a while, and Dabo has even opened his eyes to the portal this offseason and brought in a couple of players out of the transfer portal. They've got a returning quarterback in Cade Klubnik, probably going to be a pretty good team again next year. They should be the favorite to win the ACC, I would think, next year, given what they have coming back. They went and got Tom Allen as defensive coordinator, the guy from Penn State. He used to be the head coach at Indiana, so they've upgraded there. I think they're going to be another good team next year. But Dabo Swinney has won a ton of games. Has he won 8 or 9 ACC championships, made the playoffs 6 or 7 times, it seems like. And while I think everything that was said about Dabo Swinney over the last 3 or 4 years was true, Clemson was tailing off. He sort of had his head in the sand in regards to the portal and NIL, and I think that showed on the field, right? They've lost to South Carolina 2 of the last 3 years, I believe. They've lost to Georgia 2 of the last 3 years. They're clearly not at the level now that they were in the late 2010s. And I don't think that you can just coast off of 2 national titles for the entirety of your career. Take Mack Brown, for example. Mack Brown hasn't, I know he's gone from North Carolina now, but go back in time to last year. You couldn't have justified making Mack Brown the 3rd highest paid coach in college football at $11.1 million, which is where Dabo sits, because he won a national title in 2005 at Texas, right? So eventually the national title thing becomes less of a crutch that you can lean on. But Dabo doesn't really need those. If you take those 2 national titles away from Dabo Swinney, I think he still deserves to be one of the highest paid 7 or 8 coaches in all of college football. You add the 2 national titles to it, and it makes sense to me why he would be as high as he is on this list at 3rd with $11.1 million. Steve Sarkisian at 4. So we've got the national title winning coaches out of the way now. Kirby Smart with 2, Ryan Day with 1, Dabo Swinney with 2. They're 1, 2, and 3 in terms of highest paid coaches in the country. At number 4, you've got Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian. Now, they've had a couple of really good years and have been kind of trending in the right direction since Sarkisian took over at Texas 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it's been now. They've now made the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. Their last year in the Big 12, they won the Big 12, made the playoffs before losing to Washington, right, in round 1. This past season, they came up short in the SEC championship game against Georgia, but still got into the playoffs. They had a 10-2 regular, they had an 11-1 regular season, 11-2 after their loss in the SEC championship game to Georgia. And they hosted a playoff game, like I mentioned earlier, at home against Clemson, where they got the win. They did lose in the next round of the playoffs, but they made the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. They have won or played for their conference championship 2 years in a row. They finished in the top 10 2 years in a row. They recruit at a ridiculous level. Steve Sarkisian is one of the best offensive minds in all of college football. It makes sense to me that Steve Sarkisian would be high on this list of highest paid college football coaches. Now, once we get to this part of the list, I think you can start to make some arguments that maybe, should Lincoln Riley be ahead of Steve Sarkisian? for example. Lincoln Riley is a good example, kind of what I talked about with Mac Brown and Dabo Swinney, right? Eventually, what you did somewhere else a while ago stops meaning as much as it used to. Lincoln Riley had an incredible run at Oklahoma, a run that ended with a loss in the first round of the playoffs for 3 or 4 years in a row, but he won the Big 12 3 or 4 years in a row, made the playoffs 3 or 4 years in a row, had multiple Heisman winning QBs, but lost in the first round of the playoffs, and that ultimately led to him making the decision to leave Oklahoma and go to Southern Cal. It has not been a success at Lincoln Riley for Southern Cal. In fact, it's been anything but. They had one decent season, and in that season, they lost to Utah both times, I believe, right? They made a New Year's Six game, but lost to, was it Tulane that beat them in a New Year's Six game? Last year, after transitioning into the Big Ten, they struggled to get to a 500 record. They lost Caleb Williams, and the quarterback situation was kind of a mess last year, at least compared to what we're used to seeing from a guy like Lincoln Riley. So in my mind, there is no justification for Lincoln Riley being fifth on the list of highest paid college football coaches unless you're going to look back in time now 7, 8, 9, 10 years and use what he did at Oklahoma in 2016, 17, 18, 19, whatever it was, to prop up what he's not doing now. He has not been a success at Southern Cal. Whatever the bar or the expectations were at Southern Cal when they brought him in, he has failed to meet that. And I'm not convinced he's ever going to get there. I have long thought that Lincoln Riley was a better fit for the NFL. He is a good offensive mind. I don't know how much longer he will last at Southern Cal, sort of just treading water in the, 3 to 6 loss range, but it shouldn't be very long. It's unacceptable. Now, I'll raise my hand and admit I'm a known hater, I guess, of Lincoln Riley, if that's what you want to call it. I don't think he values the defensive side of the ball. I don't think he puts nearly enough emphasis, effort, or attention on the defensive side of the ball. I think that is shown over the course of his entire career. And he is one of the most overpaid college football coaches in the country, in my opinion. More on that in a minute, because while he's one of the most overpaid, he's not the only coach that's overpaid. He's not even the only coach that's overpaid on this list. So number 5 would really be the first one, I guess, where I would have some sort of an issue. Again, I'm not saying I agree exactly with what all of these coaches are getting paid 1 through 4, but they make sense to me. Lincoln Riley being the 5th highest paid coach in all of college football makes no sense to me at all. The guy has done absolutely nothing at Southern Cal, and even at Oklahoma, he was kicking an empty Coke can down the road through the ashes of the Big 12 all regular season just to show up into playoffs and get his ass handed to him every single time he got there. He never won a playoff game. Let's not forget that. He made playoffs 3 or 4 times, one and done every single time. Now it just gets ridiculous. Bill Belichick at 6. Guy's never been a head coach in college football. In fact, he hasn't been a coach in college football at all at any point in the last 50 years. He's 80-something years old. The reason he's in college is not because he wants to be in college. It's because no NFL team wanted him. And I'm not here to tell you that he's not a good coach or a good NFL coach anyway. My issue is I don't think NFL head coach and college head coach are even the same job. In fact, they're not the same job. You have 2 totally different sets of responsibilities. NFL head football coach and college football head coach. They almost don't translate at all. Outside of the ability maybe to hire good assistants and maybe a little bit of tight, like personnel management type stuff, maybe some hands-on coaching stuff as a head coach, but that's very little really in the NFL or in college. They're just 2 totally separate jobs. So is it impressive what Bill Belichick accomplished with the New England Patriots and Tom Brady? Yeah, it's extremely impressive. One of the best runs in sporting history, never mind the NFL or just football in general. What they did up there was unbelievable. Obviously, there's no Tom Brady at North Carolina, and it's kind of a chicken and an egg argument. And I'm not a huge NFL fan, so I don't really have an opinion on it one way or the other. But you hear the argument all the time, and it's kind of like the chicken and the egg argument. Was New England successful because of Bill Belichick, or was New England successful because of Tom Brady? I think it was kind of a perfect storm, kind of a perfect combination of the two. I don't think Tom Brady would have had as successful a career had he not been under Bill Belichick. And I don't think Bill Belichick would have had as successful a career had he not had Tom Brady as his quarterback. So I kind of think the two are intertwined. I don't think one should get all the credit and the other should get none. I do know that when Tom Brady left New England, he went somewhere else and won a Super Bowl, and Bill Belichick didn't. I do know that. But my issue here is North Carolina basically chasing Mac Brown out on a rail, a national title winning college football head coach who admittedly never really got North Carolina to where they needed to be during his second stint there this go round. But I don't understand running him out of town because he's old just so you can bring in Bill Belichick. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. It seems to me like Bill Belichick is a downgrade from Mac Brown. Again, I'm not talking about what the two of them did in the NFL. I don't care what they did in the NFL. This isn't the NFL. This is college football. One has nothing to do with the other. There is no draft. There is no free agency. In fact, it's constant free agency. It's roster management. It's sitting on a grandma's living room in the middle of the country somewhere and telling her how good her cream corn is because you need her grandchild to come play cornerback for you. It's a lot of sucking up. It's a lot of ass kissing. It's a lot of begging donors for money. It's a personality job. A college football head coach needs a certain personality. Now ask yourself this about Bill Belichick. If you don't know anything at all about him, what do you think about his personality? Well, he doesn't have one. You ever seen a Bill Belichick press conference? The guy's got no personality at all. I don't forget the fact that I disagree with the fact that they even hired him. $10 million a year? This guy has not stepped foot on a college sideline in 50 years. This is a disaster waiting to happen. This is financial irresponsibility at a level never before seen. Absolute insanity to give Bill Belichick $10 million a year to be the coach of North Carolina. This is going to crash and burn. Mike Norvell at $10 million a year, almost equally as stupid. Now, I'm going to give the Florida State fans and Mike Norvell a little bit of slack here because they're not the first team that has fallen victim to this idiocy here. Follow along and tell me if this sounds like a familiar story that you've heard in college football over the last 25 years. Basically, during the time frame where coaching contracts have escalated at a ridiculous level. Team is floundering. Team brings in new coach. New coach has a couple of bad years. New coach has a halfway decent year. New coach then has one good year. Let's give him massive 10-year contract, $100 million. He had one good year out of 4. Let's back up the Brinks truck. It's a tale as old as time. Texas A&M did it with Jimbo Fisher. When you've got a guy, Mike Norvell, who's been your coach for 4 years, and in that 4-year time frame, he's had one good season. Now, granted, that one good season was really good. I'm talking about 2023. They went 13-0, won the ACC, and then got blown out by Georgia in the Orange Bowl. That was a really good season for Florida State. Okay, but 2 of the 3 seasons before that were losing seasons. Even the 3rd season wasn't great. It was like a 9-win season. I don't think they beat any ranked teams. It just wasn't great. And then he did have the one good year, a one good year that ended in no playoff appearance and a 60-point loss in a New Year's Six game. And Florida State turns around and makes him one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football. The guy's got a losing record at Florida State. Overall, notice I haven't even mentioned what he did this year. I'm not looking at this contract in retrospect and going, oh, they shouldn't have done that because now he went 2-10. I haven't even mentioned the fact that this clown fuck went 2-10 in 2000. I haven't even mentioned it. It's got nothing to do with it. All going 2-10 this year did was prove me right because I went on this same rant a year ago when they gave this bum this $10 million a year contract. He is a portal feast or famine coach. He is not some kind. Look, we heard for years that Mike Norvell was some kind of a quarterback whisperer, right? Because Jordan Travis was good. No, Jordan Travis was just good. Right? What happened to Florida State once Jordan Travis was no longer an option? They can't get a first fucking down. They couldn't get a first down against Georgia at the end of the 23 season after Jordan Travis was hurt. The game before that, when they played Louisville, they struggled to get a first down in the ACC championship game. And then all of this season, they set football back 100 years with that offensive performance they were putting on the field this season. This is the most overpaid coach on this list, and I don't think it's close. You can make some excuses for Bill Belichick if you want to be a blind North Carolina homer. You can go, well, he's got 111 Super Bowls and he's drafted all these Hall of Fame players and he knows how to scout talent and identify talent, and high school kids are going to want to play for us. You can sort of trick your mind into believing some of that shit is true about Bill Belichick, which it ain't. But you can trick yourself into believing that to make yourself think that it's okay to give Bill Belichick $10 million a year. You know, we talked about all this, you know, Bill Belichick doesn't have any college experience, doesn't have this, doesn't have that. You know what else Bill Belichick doesn't have? 3 losing seasons in the last 4 years. He doesn't have that either. For 5 years. Mike Norvell's been at Florida State for 5 years. 3 of them were losing seasons. I'm not talking about years where he went 10-2 and came up a little short and missed the ACC title game or lost in the first round of the playoffs. No, losing seasons 60% of the time. 3 out of 5. For you idiot. See what y'all done did? Y'all done got me all worked up. For some of you idiots that might be enrolled in that Barnum and Bailey program they got down there at Florida State, 3 out of 5 is 60%. Just take my word for it. You are paying a guy $10 million a year who has a losing record 60% of the time. Clown behavior for a clown fucking school. That's the most overpaid coach on this list. Kalen DeBoer, I think, is overpaid as well. Kalen DeBoer has had one really good year at the Power 5 level. I talked about this when he was hired. I respect what he did in junior college, in the penal league, and whatever Bush league he was in before he got to Washington. It's not that it's not that I don't respect that, but that means nothing to me in terms of what he may or may not do in the Power 4. So I don't even consider that. He had one really good year at Washington with a generational talent at quarterback in Michael Penix. And I'm not discounting that either. They nearly won a national title, okay? But then he comes down to Tuscaloosa with a much better roster overall, top to bottom. A serious drop-off at the quarterback position, though. And they flounder and fall on their face. They lose to 3 unranked teams. They lost to teams with losing record. They lost to Vandy, lost to Oklahoma, lost to the worst Michigan team in 25 years. He shouldn't be the 6th highest paid or tied for the 6th highest paid coach in all of college football. I think we all kind of understand how this happened, though. It was late. It was about this time last year when Saban, threw up the double birds and said, I'm out. And Alabama's sort of in panic mode. And so, Kalen DeBoer's a hot name and he was good last year. Let's go get him. We'll just pay him. We'll just overpay him. And that's what happened. So I kind of understand and I get it, but I can tell you right now, there's coaches that deserve to be making more than Kalen DeBoer. Lane Kiffin should be making more than Kalen DeBoer. What Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss, to me, is more impressive than anything Kalen DeBoer's ever done. Okay? Ole Miss is a perennial fucking doormat. It's just a laughing stock, a joke, just an illiterate state. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. And I'm no huge Lane Kiffin fan, but what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss is more impressive than anything Kalen DeBoer's done. James Franklin, I could go on and on. There are coaches that should be making more than Kalen DeBoer. So that's a little, they're overpaying too. They're overpaying too there. It's not as egregious as so here's my question I'll ask you. Who do you think on this list is the most overpaid? That's number one. Who's the most overpaid? To me, it's Mike Norvell. I think Mike Norvell is the most overpaid coach on this list. Then Bill Belichick. Then probably Kalen DeBoer and then Lincoln Riley. That would be sort of the order for me. So that's my question for you. Who do you think is the most overrated coach on this list? And what coach that's not on this list should be on this list? How many coaches is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 coaches there. Which coach that's not on this list? So this is the highest paid 8 coaches here. Who should be on this? Who should be making $10 million a year, but they're not? Let me know that down below, too. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Have a good morning.